Delaney's OK Tire and Langley inbox. Ask Moj for his jambalaya recipe.
Ooh.
Bob Marjanovich joining us now in the wake of the Lions' loss, Western semi-loss in Regina on Saturday. Moj, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you? You got that jambalaya recipe ready?
You have me all year long, and you bring me on at the tail end to do the autopsy. I feel like Quincy, for crying out loud.
3 people got that. Jack Klugman, I got it.
Great show. Great show.
Okay, so what were the autopsy results, Moj? It's over.
Well, clearly, personnel-wise, they didn't have the personnel to get it done. I think they were banking on some players internally to improve this year, and they didn't. When you look at the secondary, guys like Adrian Green, Patrice Rene, and Ryan Phillips said at the start of the year he anticipated Adrian Green to be in contention for an All-Star. He had problems. Patrice Rene had problems. And I'm just talking about guys, but there's other guys as well. Trust me. But I'm just using that as an example about some of the personnel that they expected to improve within that didn't. I'm not blaming the season on Patrice Rene and Adrian Green, but that's just the gist of it. 2 examples. The other thing, too, is don't kid yourself about the loss of Josh Woods. He was lost early in the season to an ACL injury, and he was the guy in the middle that would have given the Lions a real physical presence on that defense. Losing him really hurt because they had linebackers, but they didn't have that physical stud, that Darnell Sankey type. And then there were players, who aged throughout the course of the season as well, right? So, a guy like TJ Lee, don't know if he'll be back next year. There's other players as well, right? Seontae Evans didn't even finish the season with the team after he started as the cornerback at the start of the year. So there's a lot of questions in terms of the personnel and how they move forward.
Moj, let's backtrack a bit and go back to Saturday. They were tied at the half, 13 all. What did you see in that second half that led to the Lions' downfall?
Guys, it was a microcosm of the season. It was the ability to not to take advantages of the red zone. In the red zone, that hurt them. And then second downs killed this team all season long. And I'm talking about the opposing team's second down conversion rate.
Yep.
Saskatchewan's 16 for 24? I mean, it was insane, or 12. Yeah, it was 16 for 24, I think. They were it was 16 for 24, so there was 75% clip. They couldn't get off the field on second down. And I think the other thing, too, on defense, and this was, again, something that plagued them all year long, they just weren't able to get turnovers. And that can be, you can kind of trace that back to personnel and players playing with aggression and confidence, right? So it was a tough year all around considering the expectations.
All right, look into your crystal ball, Moj, for us. A lot of heat on the coach right now, Rick Campbell. There's just a lot of people think that they need to make a move with the head coach. Where are you with that?
Well, I think everything's under examination right now. And if you look at who eventually calls the shots, it's Amar Doman. I mean, he owns the team, and I imagine he will defer and take the advice of the president, Dwayne Vanu. And I just think that when you look at Amar's track record as a businessman, I mean, you don't get to that level by making rash decisions or emotional decisions. So I think they will weigh in everything that happened this year, look at all the factors, and then determine whether or not Rick Campbell moves forward. I think, when you look at coaches and coaching changes, usually it's when a team, when a coach loses a team. I don't think that's the case with Rick Campbell. However, but the other thing that really comes into play for me is consumer confidence, right? Mm-hmm. And when you don't have consumer confidence in your coach, and right now I think that could be an issue for the Lions, that might come into play. And the other thing, too, is you got to get over the hump. Donnie, this reminds me of, in a way, think back to the late 70s when the Lions had those great teams with Vic Rapp, and they always kind of ran into the Edmonton Eskimos. They couldn't get over that hump. They went out and they got Don Matthews. They bring in another coach. So who knows? Maybe that's something that gets them over the hump. But at the same time, there's personnel issues that this team has to work with.
Hey, listen, you don't have to, when it comes to old guy references, Dollywall was around in the late 70s too, not just me.
Hey, I remember Jerry Taggy and the Cardiac Kids, 1979, Moj.
You know the crazy thing about the one thing about Dollywall between 1979 and Dollywall today. You know what those two versions of Dollywall have in common?
What?
They still
What?
can't tie their shoes.
Hey, and Ron Settlebauer, big year, Moj, back in
Ron
'79.
Settlebauer, first ever Canuck to score 40 goals.
40
Yes,
goals.
He had like 9
Yeah.
assists.
Yeah.
We're dinosaurs, all three of us. Listen, Nathan Rourke, Vernon Adams, what do you do?
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty clear that they're going to go with Nathan Rourke. Had Vernon Adams taken this team on some crazy 3-game winning streak and won the Grey Cup, I think then you probably would have had an extremely tough decision. But I think they've made their bed with Nathan Rourke, and it'll be his team moving forward next year. And the one thing I can say about Vernon Adams Jr., total class act, handled this like a complete pro, even though it wasn't fair to him, and we all know that. But sometimes life isn't fair. But you talk about a guy who was invested, whose teammates loved him. To me, I tip my cap to Vernon Adams Jr. and how he handled himself, how he conducted himself, and just, the way he handled this whole situation.
Hey, Moj, maybe this sums up the season as well. Was the Victoria game the highlight of the season for the Lions?
Probably, both on and off the field. Maybe the win in Montreal on the field. They won that game 37-23. And, it's crazy because when I look back at that game, I remember talking to Neil McAvoy about this, the Lions GM. And he said, did you ever have the feeling that they were going to lose that game? I said, no. They just played with a swagger that night.
Yes.
And it's weird how some teams just, you just match up well against. And for the Lions, Montreal was that tonic. And I know at the end of the year, people are saying it was a mean-nothing game, but they went out there and they dominated that game. They won it 27-3. But that game in Montreal, and Victoria was probably the highlight of the year in the sense that it was a success on and off the field.
Yes.
We were there for 4 days or whatever, and it was a really cool vibe in the city. So, yeah, probably if I had to go with a highlight, like even when they were on that 5-game winning streak, maybe the game in Hamilton was a blowout, but a lot of those games were tight. And the thing that kind of concerned me, I remember when they beat Winnipeg and they squeaked by Winnipeg early in the year in Winnipeg, and I thought to myself, man, Winnipeg's missing a lot of pieces. And this was a game that I think the Lions should have made a statement and blown the Bombers out. Instead, they wound up winning by 1 score. So that kind of tempered my expectations moving forward, and I was hoping to see more. And unfortunately, we didn't after that 5-1 start.
We were wondering earlier in the show if it was still raining out, if it was still windy out, and your background answered the question. So we thank you for that. Where are you right now?
I'm at home.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Don't you have a press conference to attend this morning?
Yeah, well, as soon as I get off the what do they call this thing, Zoom thing, I'm running out the Surrey to get there by 11.
Okay. All right. Well, get going because the traffic's bad. The weather's not great.
So what? I guess I'll see you guys next November. Is that it?
Yeah. We'll get you on next November.
Yeah, November 2026.
Right,
Okay, Moj, thanks. Little shot at the end. Thanks, Moj.